What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 364 of Opinions May Vary. I am your host, JR. I have my co-host with me, Alex.
Hello.
How's it going?
Pretty good.
So good. We lose an hour soon.
Yeah.
Fun fact for the save. Joining us this week, waiting patiently over the internet machines, is I think we've talked about this person. I'm doing my typical lead up. We've talked about this person 3 years ago, 2 years ago. You probably don't remember, but either way, it was a fun part of our Kineticon recap actually from 2017.
Cool.
But joining us this week is artist and creator Ben Bishop. Ben, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
We had the pleasure of chatting. It was mostly Alex again, and when I say we, it was me awkwardly doing the child clinging to the parent's leg thing, while Alex does the big boy talking to people because he's an adult who doesn't have ridiculous anxiety issues at conventions, or rather talking with strangers. But a couple years ago, we got to meet you at Kineticon. You were one of the few like comic artists there that year. So obviously we kind of jump all over those people because they're kind of few and far between at Kineticon. We like Kineticon a lot. It's a fun show. But as far as the comic artists, they are scarce.
Yeah.
But we did get to meet you then. Alex got to pick up a rad sketch and picked up some product, some books. And now we're here because it turns out there's more product coming. But that's my half-assed attempt at an intro. But
yeah, Kineticon was pretty good. That was my first show where they gave me a hotel ever. So that was pretty cool. They were like, "Yeah, you want to be a guest and get a hotel?" And I was like, "Sweet, can I have a parking spot too?" And like, sure. So it's like, oh, this is what it's like, huh? I've arrived.
We laugh at the parking spot thing, but like that's no joke. Like if
No, it's
4 days of parking, you're looking at like $100+.
Yeah.
That's no joke right there.
At one of the 3 or 4 garages within a square mile.
Is it Chris Keiko that walks everywhere? Like he just walks to his Airbnb.
Yeah.
He's like,
Yeah.
I ain't parking.
He finds an Airbnb that's pretty nearby.
Anyways,
he gets an Uber to go to either Michael's or Walmart to pick up frames, and then that's the frame that he has at his table.
Right.
And then he gives away whatever print is in the frame at the end of the show.
So that's fun to know that Kineticon took care of you.
Yeah.
And that they hit you up.
Yeah, that was the first and only time I've been there. But I'll probably go again because I had a good show. I got a prime spot. I don't know if you remember.
Oh, you were a corner spot. Yeah.
Yeah, so they gave me a hotel, but when I went to check in, they were like, "You're not on the list." I'm like, "Well, you gave me a hotel and I'm on your website, so I'm just going to pick a spot." So I picked that spot, and then I actually found an extra table, and so I made like a 2-table corner, like Bishopolis. It was amazing.
Bishopolis. That's you got to trademark that.
Yeah, I try and get expanded every year. I expand every year, so
it worked. Because it caught my eye, and I had to walk up and start looking at stuff, and it was one of those really nice conveniences, I'll say, because for a lot of artists that go to Kineticon, it's kind of a weird show. It's not the same as a Comic-Con. It's we've been reporting on it for 6 years. We don't have an easy way to define it yet, just because it's so multi-genre. And I was able to walk up just randomly one of the days and say, "Oh, you got blank covers? Can I get a sketch cover?" And you were like, "Sure, what do you want?" And we negotiated, we worked it out. And it wasn't until later on, it's been 2 years or so now, and I'm watching your Facebook page and I'm watching your posts, and you're saying like when you're taking pre-commissions for other conventions. And my pre-commissions filled up. Can't do any more. And I'm like, his pre-show slots are full for like big comic shows, and I was lucky enough to just walk right up.
You were right place, right time.
Yeah, I think that was also before that started happening like every time, which is cool. I mean, I'm really, really grateful that it happens every time now, but like I have this huge. I just put up pre-show commissions today for Emerald City in Chicago next week and the week after, and I have this huge disclaimer on the pre-show commission sign up that's like, I don't know how busy the show is going to get. This will, at least guarantee you're the first on the list or the first few people on the list, but sometimes the shows just get swamped and I can only get so many done, and then whoever I don't get done ends up on the list, the big list, and that's the one that I take home and I do on the couch commissions till I fall asleep and things like that. And so it's basically like, if you're not okay with what could be several months, please don't sign up. But what that's done though is given me a list of like really, really solid, patient people, and then I can take my time on it and it ends up even better. So it all works out.
Your name has
but
also.
You lucked out.
I did.
And you got a full cover, two characters.
Yeah.
That's what's up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely recognize my luck in that. I will say I did review your name on Sketch Prices. I'm not sure if you follow that or know what that is. It's a group on Facebook where people,
No.
fans and collectors, will go on and say, this is what I got. I went to, let's say, Boston Comic Con, and this is my David Finch headshot, and it cost me this many dollars. And so now when I say, oh, Finch is going to be in New York, what's his general range? How much money do I bring? I'll go review the website. And so you're on here a bunch of times.
Oh, wow.
The people recognize.
Oh yeah,
is what you're saying.
Easily.
I gotta get on that site and see what they're saying.
And it's not quite so, like, reviews sometimes come out in the comments, but it's really mostly a positive site. The moderators want it to be positive.
Good.
And but people will like, and it's really a utility for someone to go, if I want a Ben Bishop, when I go to C2E2, what should I bring? How much money is that going to cost me? And maybe I'll get an idea of what I'm going to be paying and what kind of quality I'm getting. And one thing that sticks out in my head, which is incredible, I'll get to why. One contributor, I think he put it up recently, he got a layout done by you of like almost easily, like maybe over 15, almost 20 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle characters.
Yeah, that's Armani.
You did the initial layout, and then like, so Peter Laird is there.
I think it's 27 characters.
Michael Dooney's in there. I have a piece from him.
The subtle flex.
Steve Levine, we've talked to him, not like on the show. Simon Beasley's on there, which, wow. Matt Slay's in there. I have a piece from him. And like all these names that got to work over your original, your layout. What is that like?
It was awesome. He asked me to do the layout, and he was like, yeah, I think it's 27 characters. And so I said, okay, well, I think we should put like 3 11x17 side by side.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea being that way he could like give one sheet to one artist that, takes their time or holds on to it all weekend while other artists are working on the other sheets, so they're not just like bogarting the whole piece for a couple months.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, it was a lot of characters and it was a lot of thinking. But at the same time, I didn't want to flesh it out too much because the whole point would be for those creators to be able to shine and give their own versions of those characters. So I did everything like really, really lightly. So that it was just kind of a suggestion of the space that each character should take up. And then those creators could choose to use my pose or erase it and just use that space or whatever. But yeah, it's been awesome. What's really cool is I've worked with so many of those guys now already, like on other stuff, like Chris Johnson's on there and Mateus Santaluco, and they're both doing variant covers for my book, The Aggregate. Steve lives essentially right down the road from me, like 15 minutes, Steve Levine. Jim Lawson and I have had drinks several times. I've done a few signings with Peter Laird. Obviously, Kevin and I work together, Kevin Eastman and I. And so it's been really cool to see what they all do and then, get giddy about them working over my pencils, of course. But he wanted me to do the next one, and I was really excited to do it. But again, I have the big list. And so I said, it might be like a year before I can start. I didn't want to hold him up. So actually Chris Johnson, another turtle artist, he's done the layout for the next one already with, I think, something like 20 new characters. So It's like the commissions to end all commissions. It's the
Yeah,
jam
those.
piece of the century.
It is very cool. That's really neat. And it's fun when a fan can like connect with an artist on that level where you go, I have a special project and I'm going to bring it to you. Please help.
Yeah, he's a cool guy. Armani, I know he's sat down with creators at shows and just been like, I'll basically, take all the commission orders for you and kind of, you know, keep in touch with them while you're drawing. And so he's done that for Simon Beasley and he did that for Mateo San Luca. So he kind of finds a way to get in with these creators and, he's making them more money by, kind of spearheading and being the agent of the commissions.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not taking anything for it except that he gets a place to sit. And bragging rights, but it's pretty cool. He's a nice guy.
That's how we first met this dude Rob Zeta, because he was doing that for Ryan Otley.
Oh yeah.
And then we were just angry at Rob the whole time.
Yeah. Because he was literally just a fan, and he was like, "Hey, do you need help at conventions? I can help you." And, yeah, sure, whatever. Living the dream.
Awesome.
But it's neat that I think the magic is lost a little bit on my upcoming, because we were talking about sketch prices and how you can go and find all these different artists. One might say, are you ready for this? I don't know if you're ready for this, Alex. One might say it's a nice, aggregator of talent where you can find. Did you see the segue?
Good job.
Did you see it?
Nice.
Is it still a
I
segue?
love what just happened.
Is it still a
I always
segue if you call attention to it as soon as it happens?
No.
So, Ben, you've done this project first 4 years ago, correct? 2015 was the first one?
The aggregate?
Yes.
Yeah. So the aggregate, I've been working on the seeds of this idea since 2009, but then that's not me, by the way. Then finally launched a Kickstarter in 2015 for it. So yeah, 4 years.
So it's a book. It's called The Aggregate, hence my terrible segue joke about aggregators and blah, blah, blah. Sketch Price is a great place. Don't let me diminish that. But The Aggregate is a comic that you put together, kickstarted back in 2015, successfully raised over $30,000, $30,500.
I had this idea for like a post-apocalyptic super sci-fi book with just like everything I loved about sci-fi kind of rolled into one. And that was way back in like 2009. And my brother and I were hoping to do something together. And so I said, hey, why don't we work on something like this? And he was watching a lot of that show, Life After People, where people just disappear and it kind of speculates what the world would be like. It doesn't talk about, what happened. There's no nuclear fallout or anything like that. It's just like, what if everything just stopped and we were gone, but everything else kept going. And so there were a lot of cool ideas that came from that. But then we got really wrapped up in the reality of, okay, well, what would it really be like? And where is evolution headed and stuff like that. And then when you do that, it kind of takes the fun out of it because anyone can do that. Anyone can, speculate using real facts and real science and the history of the world and stuff. So it kind of didn't go anywhere for a couple of years. And then I just decided to draw whatever I thought would be fun to draw, which led me to giant robots and spider cats. And then as I started doing the story, I found reasons for those things to exist. Like, okay, well, I'm going to do it backwards. I'm drawing spider cats that people ride, giant spider cats, because that's fun. But like, why are they there? And how does that, propel the story? Or how does that even fit into the story? The same with the robots and stuff. So then my sci-fi action adventure became like very colorful and lots of crazy, mixed up creatures and tech and super sci-fi stuff. But then I was thinking about it and I was like, it's still kind of just a run-of-the-mill sci-fi story, just at that. And I was on this really, really long car ride from Maine to Denver, Colorado for Christmas because my wife's whole family's out there. And I drove the entire way while she slept, and I just thought of this idea to make it more like an old choose your own adventure book because no one was doing that. And so I came up with this name, Split Decision Comics. and I started writing the world's first split decision comic. And so that allowed me to, if I had different ideas, I could put them all in there instead of just choosing one. Like, oh, does he get a sword or does he get a shield? And then I said, no, I mean, we'll let the reader decide, and they can dictate where the story goes. So it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to write. It's a lot of fun to read.
While there's a lot to that I want to say that's a great idea, I feel it's also super frustrating at the same time.
To people who are not creative, like, and I knock us all the time making fun of our artistic inabilities, because I have the same thing. I'm like, that seems exhausting. Like you're saying it's a lot of fun. I'm like, I'm tired just thinking about the process of putting all that together.
Oh, so you mean to write it, not to read it? I was like, oh wait.
Oh no.
Oh no, yeah.
No. It's like from like viewing it from a creator standpoint, and then being like, hey, I'm gonna draw a bunch of pages that people might never look at.
Well, so here's what I realized really, really early on. No one's ever going to read just one thread and be like, cool, and then put it down. So the other thing that, I do that doesn't really happen in the old Choose Your Own Adventure books or anything like that is I bank on the fact that you're going to read every page. And so while you might get wildly different situations and like a heavier conversation or a villain's monologue or something in one thread versus another thread, when all's said and done and you've gone, okay, I just died, my head fell off or whatever, I got to go back, I fell down a cliff, I got to go back. When all's said and done and you've read every page, you get this like huge, broad understanding of the whole world. Because even though like in one of the threads you died and the story is over as far as that thread's concerned, you might have got like 3 or 4 different conversations or insights into, the girl's character, Valerius, and what she's been up to for the last 1,000 years and why she's still alive and such and such. And so then once you are finally done and you put the book down after reading it 25 different ways and it's different every single time, you kind of have this like congealed, here, watch what I'm going to do here, aggregated memory of what you experienced in that book. And then you have your own kind of arc and your own spectrum of what it was like. So when book 2, lands in people's homes, I'm pretty sure they're going to go back to book 1 and then they're going to start a thread. And then that thread, if it ends with a to be continued, they're going to put down book 1 and they're going to jump to whatever page it tells them to go to in book 2. So all the to be continues of book 1 go to book 2 and so forth. So then when I get to, 3 or 4 or 5, people will always start back, in book 1. Or in any of the spin-off little issues. And yeah, to anyone who's not read it, it probably sounds confusing, but I thought it was going to be somewhat of a Beautiful Mind situation with like yarn and tacks and all over my wall. But honestly, I wrote it like I would write any story. And then when I got to a spot where I was like, I don't know, there's a couple things that could happen here, I would just write like that one thread up, and then I get to a point and I go back to the split and I write the other thread. The complicating part came when I wanted to loop something back in, because something might have went on this like long journey for 100 pages and then it loops back into another thread,
Right.
And so I needed to make sure nobody like lost an arm or got a haircut or changed their clothes and that I wasn't repeating conversations. So if they had like already talked about, what's your dog's name or something, I didn't want that to happen again, But it's fun to think about it. Like I said, I'm also doing like these little 1-issue kind of standalone things. They're like 20 pagers. I did one with the book 1 Kickstarter called Issue 0 Prologue. And it's like how the man met the dog, which is like the 2 main characters. Again, very post-apocalyptic kind of trope with like Mad Max or Oblivion or The Boy and His Dog. But that has splits in it, which lead you to different beginnings in book 1. So depending on whether or not you even have that issue in your home, you may have experienced book 1 completely differently than someone who started with issue 0.
Right.
So that's a lot of fun to me.
I feel like because like, and you're right in the fact that when you read, and we all did it when we were kids in the Choose Your Own Adventure books, oh, well, I died. Guess that I didn't die. My finger's still in it. There's a Family Guy. My finger's still in it. I can go back. I'm allowed to.
Yeah.
You can just put the book down and decide I can stop reading
I
this.
was going to say, I feel like there has to be at least one person out there who's
done with it,
who died at the first chance you could die in the aggregate. Well, that's my story.
Oh, yeah.
That's
I've heard that from a lot of people, because there is an early death that's really, really early, and a lot of people make that decision, and then they're like, "Hey, I died," and I'm like, "Well, keep going. Like, what do you mean? Why are you telling me?" I'm like, "It's not gonna happen every time. I promise."
The book is not real life.
Yeah. You have the ability to try again.
No one's going to knock you on that. No one's going to call you a cheater.
Yeah.
Because I believe you, or at least Alex, you have multiple bookmarks.
Yeah.
Like for these exist for a reason.
Because when I bought it in person, at your table at a convention, I think there's a couple covers I could have chosen from. And then whichever version I picked, you were like, that comes with this many bookmarks. So like, pick your bookmarks. And the explanation was, this way you can hold your spot where you made a decision, and if you didn't like where it worked out, where you can go back to, and there's a spot right there. You don't have to find it and maybe spoil something. It's like, no, that's the spot. There I am.
Yeah, they're kind of crucial to the split decision format, honestly, unless you want to stick all your fingers in there. But that was kind of a happy accident. I was doing bookmarks with book one before I had read anything like this before. And it was one of our stretch goals. Like, it comes with 2 free bookmarks if we hit this goal.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just worked out. I was like, oh my gosh, I should make more bookmarks. So I think I've made like 8 different designs for bookmarks for book one. And that's actually, skipping ahead a little bit, that's actually what we're aiming for right now on the aggregate book 2 Kickstarter. That's our next stretch goal is bookmarks. And I might just cave and be like, no, you guys need these. So, but I'm hoping we get there. But
yeah, the bookmarks from volume 1 aren't good enough. You need the new ones.
They have to go with the book.
The new ones are important.
Yeah, it's true. If I just printed bookmarks from book 1, people would get mad.
They would.
They'd be like, wait a minute, this isn't new art.
I can't use my book 1 bookmarks on my book 2. It's ridiculous. Some sort of savage.
Yeah.
I can't even. I'm going to sound like an enormous nerd here, which that's fine. I can't even understate how. The first thing I ever backed on Kickstarter, either the first or second thing, it was top 2, was the Reading Rainbow Kickstarter back in like 2013 or 2012. It was a while ago, a while back. Yeah. And one of the stretch goals, they had bookmarks because Reading Rainbow books.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking like, okay, cool, whatever. Like, I'm going to get a t-shirt and a magnet and I'm going to help some kids read in school. Like that's neat. I will say, of all of the stretch goals or all the stuff that I got from that Kickstarter, what's gotten the most use?
Is
the bookmarks.
The
book, dude,
I know.
To this day, last night I was reading a book right before bed and I used my Reading Rainbow bookmark. They go a long way, man.
Yeah, so I keep second guessing myself because I'm jumping ahead again. The aggregate book 2 Kickstarter is happening right now, but the stretch goal that we're close to unlocking is the bookmarks, and it's we're kind of entering the part of the Kickstarter where things are slowing down, and all my diehard friends and fans are, they've already backed it and added every single thing they could as far as additional copies and stuff. And so I've been kind of thinking like, our bookmarks just not exciting to people? They don't want to race to the stretch goal, but it's like, you need them.
Yeah.
And they're going to be great.
This is one of those projects where like they're almost kind of required. And,
they are.
Looking at the Kickstarter now, currently, as it sits right now, this is going to be posted probably tomorrow, so the number is going to be a little different, but 22 days to go still, so it's a relatively newer project.
Yeah.
Goal has been crushed. Of $30,000, you've already raised more than your previous one, which was $30,500. But currently, you're sitting at $32,000. But that doesn't mean anything because it means stretch goals. Now it doesn't mean you can just sit back on like the fans can't sit back and just be like, oh, I'm gonna get the book. I don't care. Gotta get them stretch goals.
I wanted to hit the goal, and I tell people I help a lot of people with their Kickstarters. And I always say, like, find that goal number, find out what your actual budget is and what you need, and then like take 1,000 or 2,000 down from that and assume you're going to put that in. Because if you're not backing your own project, like, why should anyone else? And you don't do it during the campaign or anything like that. But what you do is, through the course of me working on this and me printing it and me shipping it, I'm going to have my own expenses. And that's about what I think I'll contribute, not counting my work time or anything like that. The idea being that you get that your goal down low enough that, you can still make the book, because if you had it so low that it wasn't enough to make the book, you're going to ruin your entire life by never delivering it. But also that you can hit it early enough, because what happens is you want that momentum from the beginning. You want to look, like a good project that everyone should know about. And if it's just, trucking along gradually but slowly, for that first week, it doesn't necessarily look that great. But then the other thing is there's this huge amount of people, and I don't know why, but there's this huge amount of people that won't back a project until it gets funded.
Yeah. Like,
they're like, okay, this looks safe, now I'll buy one. So you want to hit so that you can start getting those people and then start racing towards the cool stretch goals. At least that's my understanding, and that's what's worked for me. But got a lot of cool stretch goals. If we get to 50,000, which I'm hoping is at least where we'll land when all's said and done, I get to make another 20-page standalone issue, like the issue 0 prologue, but it's going to be all about the spider cats. So it's going to be about the origin of the spider cats, and kind of follow, at least in the beginning, one cat 1,000 years ago, and how things went so wrong.
Or so right.
Or so right. Yeah. So I'm really excited about that one. I picture there being almost like no dialogue in the whole thing. But choices, it'll definitely still have split decisions and whatnot. So, the Kickstarter was amazing. It was like the first day, it was like 5 minutes, we were at $5,000, 6 minutes, we were at $6,000, 7 minutes. And then it went all the way to like $10,000 in 10 minutes, which took me 24 hours 4 years ago with book one. And then by the time I went to bed that night, we were at 22,000. And I was like, oh my gosh. And their goal was 30. And so then we ended up, things slowed down from them, but we ended up hitting 30 at day 3 or 4, I think, which was amazing. Like, just really, really exciting. Because that took 30 days 4 years ago. So it kind of speaks to all the new people I've met and that like what I've done since, and who liked book one.
You basically had like a social media campaign of pushing the first 48 and how important that was.
Yeah, I'd never done that before. I created an event page that lasted 2 days, and it was March 1st and 2nd. And I said, this is the first 48 hours. The first 48 hours are so important. And I said, they're so important that no matter how many people back in the first 48 hours, I'm going to give you each an embroidered patch, which is a lot more expensive than bookmarks. And so I was like, I want everyone to come to party like immediately. But at the same time, I was like, man, what happens if like 3,000 people back in the first 48 hours? So it was a risk I was willing to take. But I'm super psyched for those patches.
Is that
so
why
everyone will get this aggregate patch that says I was part of the first 48,
Were you? No, I can't. I don't remember if it was you or Rich Woodall who was looking for patch manufacturers like a bunch of months ago.
Yeah, that was me.
Yeah. You would like post
I was planning a long time.
Someone had asked about like making patches, and I was like, I found Stinking Patchco on Instagram.
Here you go.
Yeah.
There must be a like having that kind of like success that early on. I can't even imagine, because we've never even attempted anything like that. But is there like a sense of like, oh God, everything I've done to lead up to this point is finally worth it? People recognize like to make $1,000 an hour for 10 hours straight seems like a pretty big deal.
Yeah. I mean, do you mean like all the work I've done like with my other books and at shows, or do you mean my campaigning before the campaign?
Like both, like a combination of everything.
Well, like you said, the people that you've met over the years, it's like from doing conventions and doing shows and having to be
word of mouth,
a personable, person just to make friends that way, so that they want to follow you and contribute.
Yeah, no, that's really important to me. I'm always thinking about it. I'm like, I want, people who want to know what I'm up to next, and I have I have this like scary close relationship with a lot of I call them friends, but a lot of my friends and fans now. Like, I have this Bishart Kids Club. I don't know if you've caught wind of that. And it's supposed to be like the BK Kids Club, but it's not for kids. It's for anybody. And I've got 40 guys and one girl in this group, and it's like a monthly kind of. They get Bish boxes in the mail. They get 10% off everything. When we're at the same shows together, they can drop their stuff down and hang out. They get a free print, and like. These are all like dudes that I talk to them on the phone now, and so like I've been warned by other creators like it's gonna get out of control. Like I'm like I don't know maybe, but I really like doing it. My Instagram has always been kind of like a mix of my dogs and barbecuing and drinking beer, or like I'm out partying, but also all my work and stuff. I don't make it one or the other. I guess I'm just trying to see how that all goes. Where it's like, it's pretty personal, but at the same time, I am aware of, I'm not going to put, a lot of negative stuff out there. If I'm in a bad mood, like I just don't talk about it. It's just keep it positive. So.
Speaking, we did briefly mention dogs there. I have to ask because we heard a whiny boy or girl in the background. What are we talking with? What are we talking with breeds? What are we talking with name? I need to know about dogs.
Well, you can see them. You can see them all over my Instagram, which is just at Bishart, Bishart. And I've got 2 dogs. I've got Gansett and Birch, and they're both around 45, 50 pounds. Cattle dog mixes. One of them's got more Catahoula leopard dog, and the other one's got more pit bull. So she looks really cool. She's like Australian cattle dog and pit bull.
That sounds amazing.
Super sweet. Yeah.
Okay.
Too smart for their own good.
Most dogs are. Now that the important stuff has been discussed, we can are you going with the same creative team? Like it looks like on the book 1, you worked with colorist Brittany Peer. If I'm hopefully I'm saying that correctly. Are you working with her again on this book?
I think so. Yeah, we're kind of waiting to see, what happens with all the funding and where she's at with stuff that she has going on. Her and I worked together again when we did. I did that book with Kevin Eastman, Drawing Blood, which we kickstarted a couple years ago as well. And I brought her on. I was like, hey, Kevin, you should have this girl Brittany do it. She did the aggregate, and he loved the aggregate. That's how Kevin found me. He found the aggregate over at IDW and was like, I just got a rogue email one day from Kevin Eastman that was like, hey, Ben, found the aggregate. It's effing awesome. What are you doing
must
for the
have
next
been
year?
cool.
You want to do a book together? It was crazy. I was having kind of an off day at Heroes Con. And then I was just at the bar with my friends, and I was like, guys, I just got email from Kevin Eastman. He wants to do a book together. And they were like, get outside and call him.
Right now.
So I did. Yeah. But yeah, so I think she'll be a part of it in one way or another. It depends on her schedule. Whoever is, if not her, I want it to be colored very, very similarly because I love everything she did. The colors are so bright, and she kind of took a few leads from me because I'm somewhat of a control freak, where I was like, hey, I really like this noise that I put on everything that I color. And if you look closely at the pages, you can kind of see this graininess to the color, adds this texture. And so that was kind of like the final step in all the colored pages. We would add this kind of like this graininess or this noise to it, which just amplified whatever texture the paper had. And I do that on all my turtle stuff. And I just like the way it looks.
Have you always been a big Turtles fan?
Yeah, definitely. I have pictures of me in sleeping bags when I was, 6 that Steve Levine drew. Like, he drew the sleeping bag, and he was like, hey, I drew that sleeping bag. So Steve and Jim Lawson and Kevin, they all call me Young Ben. Always been a Turtle fan. It was mostly the toys and the cartoon for sure.
Yeah.
I was born in '86, so it was 3 years after the first book came out. So I didn't find the comics till later, which are obviously awesome but very different. Shredder dies in the first issue,
yeah, it's pretty.
Yeah, spoiler.
It's wild.
So yeah, definitely always been a Turtle fan, and then I kind of set my sights on it. I was working on the, at least I can't remember where I was on the aggregate book 1, but I was still doing a lot of shows. I think I was working on the aggregate, and I was just like, I want to draw Ninja Turtles, and so I started making all these fake covers. I made all these prints that I would have at shows, and I'd put the title right on it, and so people would come over and be like, "Oh, you're doing Turtles now, huh?" And I was like, "No, these are all fake, just for fun." Just hoping they'll see it. And so like every time I did one, actually the first one I ever did, I did because I wanted to get a tattoo, and my tattoo artist friend was like, "Well, can you draw turtles?" And I was like, "Yeah, probably." And he was like, "Okay, well, draw me a turtle thing." And it's this like subway print that I made, which I still sell at shows. It's still one of my favorite shots. And I traded in the original art for my first tattoo. And so that kind of sparked doing all this turtle stuff. And then at a show, I'd become friends with Ben Temple-Smith from 30 Days a Night, another creator. And he came over and was like, "Oh, you're doing turtles now, huh?" And I was like, "No, these are all fake." And he's like, "What? You should be doing turtles." And so like 2 hours later, I had an email from Chris Ryle introducing me and Bobby Kernell, who's the writer and editor on the IDW Turtles. And he was like, "Bobby, meet Ben. Ben Temple-Smith told me that he should draw turtles, so let's make it happen." And so that's how I got my first cover, which was issue 55, and they're jumping out of the sewer. And what's funny is, like, even though I had done all that turtle stuff, because that led to other covers and store exclusives and things like that, and it just snowballed. But even though I had done turtle stuff and whatnot, like I said, Kevin found me because of the aggregate. And then I was like, "Oh, I've also done turtle stuff." And he's like, "Oh, weird, cool." So
That's wild.
Like, yeah, you would have thought that would be how we connected, but it wasn't.
Because to look at your art and what you've posted and like just the amount of turtle stuff that you have, and like it seems like now you're good friends with Eastman and whatnot, and be like, "Oh yeah, that wasn't it. It was my other thing that I did."
Yeah, it was my comic with spider cats and robots, and
who knew?
Decision book. Yeah.
One thing, a common point of contention between two passionate nerds such as Alex and myself is favorite turtle. Can we put you on the spot and make you pick one, or do you even have a favorite as far as Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles go?
I definitely do. They're not my creation, so unlike Kevin or Peter, I'm allowed to decide. So I grew up loving Mikey, like most kids do, because he's fun-loving pizza guy, party animal guy.
And he has nunchucks. Like, who has nunchucks?
Yeah, yeah. But then I grew into Leo, honestly, and that was around the time I also, as far as X-Men, and this is a very unpopular choice, my favorite was Cyclops. And I always liked the leader type. I always liked blue. Cyclops had a lot of blue going on. But I never liked the bad boy or like the popular choice. And like Wolverine, like I was like, "Oh, give me a break." Like, okay, he's upset. And like with Raph, I was like, okay, he's upset, and he's ruining every movie. Like the plot of every single movie goes the wrong way because of Raph just doing whatever he wants. Every movie they've
Thank you.
And so I was just like, I'm over it. I'm tired of it. And then of course the first Turtle book I ever did the full book on was Raph. Because Kevin was like, "Hey," so we did Drawing Blood together, and then he was like, "I want to get you on Turtles." And I was like, "Oh man, that'd be amazing." And he was like, "It's a Raph story," and I was like, "I love it." So and not only that, I've never really said this out loud. I never thought about it. But not only that, but it's called Target R because it's a love letter to Weapon X. So it's Raph and Wolverine. It's like, all right, here we go. So that being said, that book is awesome, and I had a blast, and we got to redesign Raph and Casey and all these other IDW characters. And now I'm like on the fence. I'm like, oh my God, am I switching from Leo to Raph? I'm not
Ooh.
sure. I'm kind of in a transitional period right now. So that's my long answer. What's your answer?
Unfortunately,
It's Raph, isn't it?
no. Raph is and when I say least favorite, it means like he's my least favorite of 4 great characters.
Yeah.
I've been ever since I was a kid. I've been the minority in this. In that I'm I like Donatello a lot.
Yeah, I know a lot of people who like Don.
He's OP in the game, one of the games at least, and he has a cool staff, and the color purple is neat, and he's a smart boy. Those are my very well thought out ideas, and that's my presentation. That's my TED talk on why Donatello is the best Ninja Turtle.
Well, in the video game, he had the longest reach.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then he could throw him over his head. My number 1 is Leo. Second is Raph.
Nice.
And if we include Casey Jones, he comes between them, and then Donatello and Mikey come last.
Mm-hmm.
So like Casey Jones ranks above Donatello and Michelangelo.
You just had to throw it in there. If you didn't understand my jab, here's the rest of it.
What's weird is Mikey might be towards the bottom of my list now, and he was always number 1 until I was like, I don't know, 14 or something.
It's like you go through the stages of turtles through your life. You know?
Yeah.
Wow.
I think you're supposed to. Donnie is one of my favorite to draw. Donnie and Raph, because Raph, you can get him super angry and he can be tearing shit up. And then Donnie, I always give Donnie wild tech. Like I'll give him these robot arms or, a giant backpack that he's created or something. He's a lot of fun to draw for that reason. And so I think eventually I'll probably start going over more his way. Plus he's got the longest reach in the video game. Yeah.
I'm not going to deny that's an important key. It is. It's a good trait.
I think one of the real old episodes of Angry Video Game Nerd for any fans out there, like there was one part of the game where like you couldn't get past an enemy unless you used Donatello because he was the only one who could reach it. I was like, that's what's up. Respect.
Yeah. It's good. It's important. And he never messes up the plot of the movie. He's always on board.
I lost my
He's
thigh.
just like, it's just him and Mikey, pork rind, and then they're just like hanging out, watching everyone fight. Like it's just like walking backwards here, guys. Because he's smart.
It's a weird sidetrack for a moment. We were playing video games online with a bunch of our friends, and Colin was on with us. He's a guest host.
Good friend of ours.
And one of us said something like, "Oh, it's too quiet," and then out of nowhere, Colin just goes, "Yeah, a little too Raph." And I'm like,
"Yeah."
I was the only one that started cracking up. I'm like, "You son of a bitch, Colin."
Yeah. I think about that all the time. Like I almost say it, and then I think about who I'm with and would they care or would they get it. But yeah, and that's another reason why, another unpopular opinion, I love the second movie. I was born just at the right time where I love the second movie. I know a lot of diehard Turtle fans hate it. I think Peter Laird doesn't really like it. I think it's great. The suits are perfect. Henson really, he made the suits from the first one even better. I love it.
That's all
Kevin Nash is in it.
Kevin Nash. What else do you need? What else do you need besides Kevin Nash? And is the second one where they have the samurai outfits?
No, it's the third one.
That's the third one.
Yep.
That one's bad.
Straight up.
Yeah.
Kevin Nash becomes a super shredder.
That's what. Yeah, with the ooze, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just for a second, though. It's not long enough.
No.
And then he's taken out by the dog.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. The things that I learned so later on,
Yeah.
Anyways, so the Ninja Turtles are rad, and I still am blown. Like, I can't even fathom. Just like, oh hey, it's Kevin Eastman shooting me an email. He likes my shit.
It was great. I mean, it's a great because I've always, growing up and drawing comics and going to cons, and there's always the panel that's like how to break into comics, and every creator, tells their story and stuff like that, and so I'm so glad that my story is cool. Like it's like, oh well, I did samples for Marvel from 2011 to 2015, And at that point I had done like 9-page samples 10 different times.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, man, I'm giving them so much free work, and they're like complaining about the way I draw knuckles or, hair or whatever it is that whoever's, looking at them at the time, it's all personal taste.
Yeah.
And it changes every time a new guy gets up to that spot. And so I said, you know what, I'm just going to do it myself. And so I stopped wasting my time doing samples, did the aggregate. The aggregate got in front of Kevin Easton, and then I just got an email one day. It was like, hey, man, the aggregate's awesome. You want to draw a book for me? And that's part of why, now that I did Drawing Blood and the Turtles, and now when I'm back with Aggregate Book 2 on Kickstarter, that's part of why I hit 10K in 10 minutes and hit the goal on the third or fourth day. And I acknowledge that, totally appreciate it, and it's going to be a cool story to tell on podcast.
What we hear a lot from other artists, I think my favorite was I'm not going to remember his name now.
Unbelievable.
The guy who drew the...
You must have really liked it.
Pete's... Corey Lynn Hubble. He's from way over other coast. He's worked for Bungie, and he's designed
concept
100 Spartan helmets and whatnot. And his advice was like, just draw all the time. If you're not drawing at least an hour a day, you're never going to make it.
Yep, that's the same advice I give.
And it's proof too. Like you said, maybe you like to put stuff on your social media. You try not to get too personal, but you also want to put up your work. And there's been days where I've seen Ben has posted pictures of his hands and his fingers after drawing all day, and there's like a permanent indentation of the pencil in his fingers, and it's just he's working really hard. Here's the proof. And it's not even as like a a pity me or look what I'm doing for you. It's like this is what my job is right now, and
No, for me, when I do that, I'm just like, holy crap, I didn't know this could happen. Look at this. And like
the human body's weird.
Yeah. And I had to switch. It was when I was working on, I think it was Aggregate 1. I was drawing so hard and so often that my plastic mechanical pencils were getting so hot, they were first bending and warping and then snapping while I was drawing, like in half. And so like it was like this like rubber. And so I was like, there's got to be a metal mechanical pencil out there. And so I did all this research, and I found these mechanical metal pencils from Japan called Rot Ring. At the time, you could only get them on eBay. It was $75 a pencil. Wow. And so I like switched to those. Now they're everywhere, and they're only like $20. But that changed everything because, well, I mean, it indents my finger much worse. The pencil wins versus my finger. But yeah. It's fun. It's fun I get really into the process too, and I post a lot of that. Like on the Aggregate 1 is when I started I would print out all the pages I do as I do them. So I would like do an 11, my page is 11 by 14 or whatever, but after I scan it in, I'll print it out on regular sheet of paper and tape it up. Mm-hmm. And so I guess I was getting a little bit beautiful mind because I would put up every single page of the book. So you can like have a visual example of like, yes, it feels like you're treading water, but look at all you're doing. You know what I mean? Because you need every kind of motivational tool you can to sit at a desk for 16 hours and finish a book. And it was also obviously a great reference for me to be like, oh no, on that thread she did take her hood off or something, like I was talking about before. And then also the very best part of it, and I did this with Drawing Blood too, is when I'm done a book, I rip it all down and crinkle it up and stomp on it, light it on fire. So you get this very physical like reward for what you've done. After 2 years of drawing a book, you get to like just trash it and rip it down and then do a new book.
And then do it again.
Yeah. That's what I did on Drawing Blood. On Drawing Blood, I ripped it down like at 8 a.m. and by 10, I was putting up pages for RAF, the Target art book, because those books overlapped. It was nuts. And that's what's still up on my wall right now until I get into Aggregate 2, which is in 22 days.
I imagine that's a better sense of accomplishment than just watching numbers change. It's like, well, I'm supposed to do 22 pages and I'm at 5 now, and And then, tomorrow will be at 7. It's like, but seeing them on the wall as physical pages now has to be much more satisfying.
Yeah, it's really cool. And then when the walls are gone, I go to the ceiling, and like the whole room is you can see that on my Instagram and on the aggregate Instagram. It's nuts. But you're just surrounded by all the stuff. And so if you're like, oh, what was she wearing? Or, wait, does her hair part to the right or to the left? I can't remember. You just like glance up, and it doesn't stop you. It doesn't stop your momentum. You don't have to search for a file or a scan that you did. Or, I don't know. I really like it. But if you come to my studio, it's spoiler central. So,
so I imagine there's probably a lack of fabulous no prizes.
Fabulous
Wait, what?
no prizes.
Fabulous no prize was a thing Marvel editors used to do.
Oh yeah.
A while ago.
Okay.
Where it's like, in this panel, Wonder Man's glasses fell off, but then in this panel, he's just wearing them again, and they just write in about that, and the editor goes, hey, you did it. I'm going to send you a fabulous no prize. And it's just a blank envelope.
I've never heard of that.
It's an empty.
So they're getting a non-reward for messing up?
So
like non-continuity kind of thing?
If a reader or a fan catches a error or a mistake, they'll write in about it. And then if the editor or whoever happens to be working that day wants to, they could reward them with an envelope, in quotes, fabulous no prize, and there's nothing in the envelope.
That's like a really nice way of saying, like, yeah, thanks, it's too late, I saw it too, really appreciate it. Like when someone points out a typo to me in my book that's been out for a year and a half, I'm like, neat. There's your no prize. Like, yeah, I obviously didn't do that on purpose. I wish I'd never known.
You found the Easter egg. That was a secret. You did it.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Well, speaking of, back to split decision a little bit. We were talking about how you put your fingers in, and the whole point is you're going to read every single page. I actually have pages in aggregate book 1, and I will have them in book 2, that you can only get to by cheating. So you'll never get there by making a choice and landing on that page. It'll be when you think you've read every page, but you keep seeing this scene visually as you're flipping through, and you're like, I haven't found that page yet. How do I get to that page? And the only way you can get there is just to do it. And then that scene will continue in book 2, and then in 3, and then in 4. And so like you'll get this whole thread that you can only get to by cheating.
Which is just by going to the page and nothing's led you there? Is that what you mean?
Yeah. Like you're not following any of the threads to get there. Like there's no choice or decision that will bring you there. You have to just go, all right, I'm just going to read it. I don't care. Like, and then you'll have to do the same thing in the next book. And I thought that was a lot of fun because apparently that type of stuff existed in the old Choose Your Own Adventure books.
Really?
But you would never, ever, ever, ever know because you can't flip through that page. You can't flip through the book and go, oh yeah, that one looks different. Like it all looks the same.
To be like, I haven't been here before. Who knows?
Yeah, you would never ever know. So unless you wrote it, or unless you knew the guy who wrote it and he was talking about it on a podcast. But in the comic, and it's the first time it's really been done this way, exactly this way rather, is you'll see it. So you'll be like, oh, I got to check that page out, and it's actually a really cool scene. Like, the part in book 1 is the beginning of that scene. It's not like 20 pages long or anything, but when it's all said and done, like you're gonna get a big kind of payoff for witnessing that whole thread, which is fun for me. A lot of the split decision stuff is like just as fun for me as it is, I hope, for the people reading it, because like I said, I can come up with 5 ideas, and instead of just choosing one, I can do them all and then let you choose. But I talked about how it takes a lot to sit at a desk for 16 hours and do a page. And when you're thinking about comic books in general, you might draw a page for 16 hours, but it takes somebody 30 seconds to read it.
Right.
And if you don't give them a reason to go pick that book up again and read it again, then they may never. So with this, you might find yourself in that thread again for a few pages. And so people are kind of rereading the same pages every now and then, and so you're giving more value to that 16 hours you spent at that desk. So I really like that aspect of it.
Calling it a split decision, was that just like, this is going to be my little trademark versus what we've seen recently after Bandersnatch on Netflix, who are potentially, as I heard, I don't know if it's still ongoing, getting sued for having a Choose Your Own Adventure Netflix movie by the original Choose Your Own Adventure, publishers. It's like, that's a thing that was trademarked, but was Bandersnatch actually calling it that? And so that seems, it's interesting that you chose a thing that won't get you in trouble.
Yeah, well, this was in that very first car ride, inner thought process when I was thinking about the book itself. I was like, well, I can't call it Choose Your Own Adventure because for one reason or another, I knew that it wasn't just a genre. It's actually a copyrighted thing. A lot of people do think it's just a genre, and they're like, wait, what? Like Scotch tape or Kleenex or something like that. It's actually a copyrighted company. And so I don't know how I knew that. Maybe I looked it up while I was driving. I like to think I didn't. But so I was trying to think of, something snappy, and I love what I came up with, because not only does it, tell you, hey, this isn't a normal book and you're going to be making decisions, but a split decision is like, oh, you have to do it like right now. And it's a snap judgment, it's like, okay, well, what are you feeling at this moment? Like you might be reading the book on a day when you're, in a really good mood versus another day when you're kind of like tired or something, and you'll make a decision differently because of that. And so yeah, I knew legally I needed to do it, but then as I started thinking about it, and especially after I came up with the name, I was super excited about it, because I was like, this is a better name, in my opinion. I think it's a better name. And what I wanted was, no one else is making comics like this. Like I think DC did, a digital Batman one where there was like 2 or 3 choices. But they all have the same outcome. And even Netflix, before they did Bandersnatch, they had a Puss in Boots show, and Stretch Armstrong. And any of the choices you make throughout that show,
that's right,
you still wind up at the same outcomes.
I forgot about the Stretch Armstrong.
Yeah. And you still wind up at the same outcomes. And so I like to say, like, split decision, the big difference is big differences. Like I wanted it to actually matter what you were doing, or at least you're experiencing a way different journey to get there. And so you're getting a lot more insight on the villain or whoever. And so because nothing like that was being made, I know I didn't invent, making choice and free will. I think somebody else did that. But I wanted to kind of put my stamp on the comic version of that. And then I'm trying now, especially this year, 2019, there's going to be a lot more titles starting for Split Decision Comics. But I want it to be what people want their comic to be if they want to do something like that. Like the same way I wanted to do a comic, and my first choice, thinking about it that first couple of minutes, would have been like, oh, I want to call it a Choose Your Own Adventure comic. And then I go, oh, I can't. But I want someone to be like, I want to make a comic where you get to make choices. And then they'll be like, oh, there's a company that does that. And I want them to come to me and be like, hey, like, this is the place to do that. So I'm really psyched about having my own name. It wasn't really like oh, I guess I have to have my own name. As far as Bandersnatch goes, they totally stuck their foot in it, man. Like, I love Netflix, and I don't ever want to talk bad about them because I've already trademarked Split Decision TV, and they can buy it. But man, I didn't watch the show when it was first coming out, and everyone and their mother was sharing it on my wall because they thought they stole it from me. And I was like, yes, I know. Yes. Like twisting the knife. Like, yeah, it's not Split Decision TV. I wish it was. And so then finally I saw they were getting sued. And so then I turned it on and I wanted to find out why. And so within like the first 3 minutes of the show, the kid's holding the book and the dad's like, what you got there? And he's like, it's Bandersnatch. And the dad's like, oh, what's Bandersnatch? And he goes, it's a Choose Your Own Adventure book. And it's like, you can't do that. Like you can say it's a choose your, I assume you could say, it's like an old Choose Your Own Adventure book, this thing called Bandersnatch or something. But they went ahead and said, this is a book that Choose Your Own Adventure published. And so that's where Choose Your Own Adventure's whole beef is, because Bandersnatch is really adult there's a lot of violence, there's blood, and they're like, that doesn't represent our company. They're like this company in Vermont, and they're like, we don't want people to see that and then think that's what our books are like, and either, you know, be disappointed or not buy our books because they don't like that kind of adult content or whatever. And so I think it's very legitimate. And then it came out that apparently Netflix was trying to make a deal with Choose Your Own Adventure. Choose Your Own Adventure couldn't come to terms and just said no. And so then they just did it anyway. And I was like, oh my gosh.
Huh.
In closing, really quick, as far as the whole Choose Your Own Adventure and legality goes, I got a cease and desist from Choose Your Own Adventure. And I got it way back in 2015 with the aggregate book 1. And they sent it to me like the day after the campaign ended, so the end of March, after my 30 day.
How nice of them to wait.
Yes, but they had they had screenshots of day 1.
Yeah.
And so again, going back to like, I want this to be the place where those kind of comics are made, like they were looking at it. And so it's like, all right, well, I had, you know, a lawyer and we did it formally and we just said like, well, we're not calling it that. So are we cool? Like, and we never heard anything from them again. But I mean, I was psyched to be on their radar, because if one day Choose Your Own Adventure is like, hey, we want this comics division, like now we've got a deal going. So,
get at me.
But like, would you, is that a thing where like, I'd be open to it, and they go, even after we cease and desisted you, be like, hey man, you know, let's all make money.
Yeah, I definitely would. I'd be like, I was honored that they found it. I did my trademarks and stuff, and the whole trademark process is supposed to see if anyone else has trademarked anything like what you're trademarking, and nothing came up. And I went all the way through with split decision, TV, games, books, movies, comics. And so I'm psyched to build this whole thing. And if a company with a established background like Choose Your Own Adventure, like I can say split decision, and then I have to kind of say, you make choices, and people go, oh, and then they say it. They go, oh, like an old Choose Your Own Adventure. But if I was like, I didn't say it. If I was like a subdivision of that company or their comics wing, like I'd be proud to work with them. It'd be great.
Now I wonder if Telltale ever had a problem with that.
I don't know, because in video games you've been making choices for a long time. Like there's Transformer games, right, where you can be a bad guy or a good guy. But yeah, they do lean on the choices a lot more, don't they?
Yeah.
In Telltale.
Well, fingers crossed we see the split decision universe erupt and take off and and engulf our lives just like Netflix has. As we
and you can help that by going to theaggregatebook2.com. theaggregatebook2.com and backing the book.
Yes, you still have about 3 weeks to go to back it if you're listening to this on the day we release it. Otherwise, you may be low on time. Go and check it out. Before we end here, Ben, I know we mentioned like the Instagram and stuff like that. Let's put it all in one place. Besides Kickstarter with the Aggregate Book 2, where can people go to find your stuff? And do you? I know you have a couple appearances coming up in the very near future. Yeah.
So my main website is it's bishart.net. So it's like BISHART.net. .com's taken, and so I've had .net since high school, and I like it. So then my Instagram is similarly bishart. Same with Twitter, BISHART. There's also accounts for the Aggregate Book and Split Decision Comics and Drawing Blood comic with Kevin Eastman and David Avalone. And where else? You can find my store connected to my site, so I won't rail off that link. But yeah, right now the important one again is theaggregatebook2.com, and there you can pick up pretty much any of the self-published books I've done in one bundle, reward or another, as well as get yourself a copy of the new book, The Aggregate Book 2, which I'm working on now. The whole thing's already written. I wrote the whole book 2 when I wrote book 1 4 years ago, because that was one of the only ways I could, wrap my head around this whole split decision thing. I just did it all at once and then chopped it up into a couple books. It
was interesting seeing
I'm excited to get thrown.
Your binders full of sticky notes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I do a lot of so I did the initial, obviously the writing on the computer and I printed it out, but there's so much that I've written in there that I'm going to have to start paying my lovely intern to actually touch up that Google Doc with any of the chicken scratch I've written in my binders so that I have a working digital document of it all too, and not just one paper document. So, but it's a lot of fun. I'm psyched. I can't wait to draw these characters again. It's been 4 years. I've kind of always wanted to do this, kind of like my Hellboy or something, like have this big ongoing project I just do forever, and in between books I jump over to Ninja Turtles or Drawing Blood with Kevin and Spider-Man or something, so just bounce back and forth.
Yeah, if you get too popular, you have to pay someone else to draw it now too.
Never the aggregate. Some of the stuff I'm doing with Split Decision, I'll just be writing, which I'm really excited about. And working with some really awesome artists, some big name artists who are, have been in the industry 2.5 times longer than me. That's pretty much a teaser, but there's good things coming.
Cool. That is very exciting to hear. Congratulations on the already success of book 2. Can't wait to see how far that grows and what comes next from you and Split Decision and in the aggregate, and it looks rad. So go check it out.
Thanks.
Go throw money at Ben and all of his stuff.
Yeah.
If you're at C2E2
help us hit that Spider Cat issue.
What was that?
I said, help us hit that Spider Cat issue at
Yes.
50K.
Get the Spider Cat.
I have another book to draw.
How are we on time right now?
We're hour 7.
Okay.
Yeah. You got another
That's
question?
Good.
Well, I mean, I've got a couple more.
What do you got?
Let's bang them out.
How are fans responding?
Hey, I'm here.
Seems to be a lot of fans of the Spider Cats, which cats everyone loves. The internet loves cats, obviously, but a lot of people.
That was also a happy accident.
A lot of people hate spiders, but you put them together anyway, and somehow it's working out. Mm-hmm. What's the magic recipe?
Yeah. I don't know, man. I had Spider Cats in the idea before I knew I was going to Kickstarter, and when it blew up on Kickstarter for book 1, I was like, oh my God, I'm so glad that I did that, because the internet does love cats. And one of the rewards on book 1 and in book 2 actually is your cat can be in the book. Mm-hmm. And I'll turn your cat into a spider cat, and it'll actually be one of the giant spider cats of the apocalypse. And that is one of my hottest rewards. And I love doing it because I'm turning these cats like Ringo and Precious and Luna, and I'm turning them all into these freaking giant evil creatures.
I'm partial to Oreo and Bub Fuzzins.
Yeah, Oreo. Yep. Bub Fuzzins is Instagram famous. Look up Mr. Bub Fuzzins on Instagram. He's got more followers than all of us combined. But I don't know. I do get people at shows. I'll have a couple come up, and the guy sometimes will be like, "Oh my God, this is amazing!" And he'll be like, "Look at this, cats!" And they'll go, "Ugh, spiders!" And they're like, "No, never mind." And so it's maybe 3 or 4 times it's actually lost the sale because they're like, "Oh, cats!" And then they go, "Oh, spiders!" And then they go away. But more often than not, they're like, "All right, well, I gotta try it. I gotta face my fears." But I don't know. It just worked out. The book 2, though, I can promise, is going to have spider kittens. And so those are the worst. Those are the worst because those things are the size of regular cats, but spiders.
Right.
And they come in waves. And so that's some nightmare fuel right there.
I tried introducing an ex-girlfriend to Saga, and we were flipping through the first trade, but then we got to the full page splash of the stock, and she's like, "Nope, never, nope." She's like, "Let's put it down. I'm not going to read this."
She doesn't like giant spider women?
Apparently not.
Shame.
No.
Shame.
Hey, look, I don't like spiders either, so I'm facing my fears. There's domesticated spider cats that do everything regular cats do, except with a bunch of legs, like lifting their legs and cleaning themselves and stuff. And then there's the feral ones that live under the ground, and those just eat everything. And they have their own webs, and it's crazy.
Oh, well, that sounds horrific.
Yeah, it can be, but it's colored so beautifully, and everything is really nice looking, so it tricks you.
Yeah.
That's a high note. I think we'll go out on spider cats eating everything in the sewers.
Spider cats.
Yep. Ben, thank you so much for coming on. Again, congratulations.
Thank you.
Everyone go and throw money at it. Go check it out. The Aggregate.
If you listen to this soon, make sure you catch my Emerald City Comic Con and C2E2 within the next week and the next 2 weeks. And pay attention to all the social media for other appearances, other shows.
Yep. Or even check sketch prices every now and then. See how the aggregation funny thing. Anyways, what?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's I'm back to making terrible jokes that I was making an hour ago, so it is time to end. Thanks again, Ben. A lot of fun. I hope you're able to stay warm up in Maine, because Maine is freezing from what I hear.
It's kind of cold.
If it's anything like Connecticut, I hear it's like twice as cold. But that is going to do it for this.
I can wear layers, so I've got lots of layers.
True. Many layers. Yeah, that's
Thanks, guys.
Hey, thanks again, man. This is super rad. That's going to do it for this week's episode. So until next time, I have been JR.
I'm Alex.
And I'm Ben.
And this has been episode 364 of Opinions May Vary.